Today we are driving a little bit of an icon in the Toyota Yaris. And it's interesting because a couple of videos ago we already drove the GR Yaris rally car, and we also drove the Yaris Cross, which is the higher up version of this one. So in this video, the normal vanilla one. I think it's pretty exciting to now have the trilogy completed, especially because this Yaris is a good looking car from the start. I don't know about you guys, but I think this looks great. Now, when we walk around the car, it's not a big car, obviously, 4.60 m and a bit long, 1.70 m wide, and about 1.50 m high. So it's not big, but it's not supposed to be. But it is a very complete car, you know, 4 doors, still enough room in the back, as we'll see on the inside in a bit. And while we're here at the back, we might as well walk to the boot right away, because the boot space is not too bad either for a small car. 290 liters here, which is more than adequate for your daily shopping, taking the kids to sports. Even a weekend away is no issue here. Even a double floor, as you can see, very exciting. So nothing crazy, but definitely very, very usable. And obviously you're not going to use this car to help your parents move house, but that's not what it's for. It's a very nice compact package that you can use from anything from the school run to groceries, as a second car, as a first car, before kids, even with kids. No issues whatsoever. So it's a very nice all-rounder, and I think that's pretty cool. And I think that's also the intention of the Yaris, to be a car for many purposes and many people. And I think overall with this kind of design, and as you'll see the tech inside as well, it's quite a complete package. Now there's two versions available in terms of powertrains, both hybrids. You got the hybrid 115 with 115 horsepower and the hybrid 130 that we have here with, you've guessed it, 130 horsepower. So there's something to choose there too, and there's obviously a lot of color combinations, and we'll get to the versions of the Yaris in a bit as well. There's quite a lot to choose if you want this platform. This regular Yaris starts just under 26,000 here in the Netherlands and goes all the way up to about 35,000. And then you got the GR Yaris rally car that we drove, that is 100,000 euros here in the Netherlands. So you can buy 4 of these for one GR Yaris. Overall though, it's a car with a lot of variety in what you want from the car and what you're going to use it for. And depending on your use cases, you can spend more or less on it. Here in the front of the Toyota Yaris, there is almost only good news. It's such a nice cabin to be in, and it is very similar to all the other Toyotas that we've driven in the past few weeks. If you haven't seen those videos, by the way, make sure you subscribe to the channel. We always appreciate subscriptions, and you won't miss any further videos. So that's cool for both of us. I'll take you around this cabin. It's very interesting that it is all buttons, so no touchy swipey surfaces at all, as is the same in almost all other Toyotas too, which is great. I really like the fact that they stuck to buttons, because buttons work. Buttons you can feel, you can touch, you can press, and that makes life easier in almost every aspect. Sure, you can do cool things with design when it's all touchy swipey, but it is not functional while driving. Driving is a complicated endeavor to begin with, so you want everything to be as easy as possible. And Toyota has done a really good job in making things logical, not only in this Yaris, but in most of their cars, where everything is where you think it will be and everything does what you think it'll do. And it's really difficult, but Toyota has done that very, very well. So we're going to start here on the left with some real buttons and real controls for your mirror, just where you want them to be. Everybody knows how this works, so that's great. There is a little bit of piano black here on the door handle, which I'm not really sure why. Toyota is not that big on the piano black, but it's over here. It's also a bit here in the middle tunnel, as we'll see. Those controls are nice. Simple controls on your steering wheel as well. You got your cruise controls on the right and all your systems on the left, and that is about it. Nothing behind the steering wheel or underneath, so everything is on here, but the buttons are logical, easy to press, and not too small, so that is excellent. Some traditional stalks for your wipers and your indicators and your lights, so that is also pretty traditional. Nothing really going wrong there. Overall, simple steering wheel, round shape. Surprisingly, that works. So no hexagon, flat bottom nonsense, just simple this way. Also no flippers or anything to adjust regen braking or anything else. We have a B mode for the drive selector that you can use for a bit more regen, but that is about it. If I look through the steering wheel, I have the traditional Toyota driver's display. For my taste, it's a bit busy, but you can configure it any way you like. And this car also has a head-up display, which really works for me because I like to keep my eyes above the steering wheel most of the time. So I can use the head-up display to get all my crucial information, and then every once in a while I can glance down for some additional information. So that works really well for me. And that's an interesting thing to mention right away, actually. When you listen to Toyota, they say, yeah, people that buy this car want the hybrid system for efficient driving, and they want the size because it's very practical and it's cheaper obviously, but they don't want it to feel like a cheap car. So they still want luxuries like steering wheel heating and a head-up display and heated seats and those kind of things. So Toyota really listens to its customers and offers those things in this car, at a premium obviously, but to make this car feel complete. Because if this is something you use every single day, it doesn't really matter if it's your first car or second car, then you want those amenities to make life more comfortable. So that is nice that that is available within the spectrum of the Toyota Yaris. Moving to the middle, we have a simple Toyota screen with the Toyota software that we've come to know and love. So nothing going wrong here. It's not the fastest system in the world. It's also not the most graphically advanced system in the world, but it all works great. Your maps, your navigation, your music, your everything is there, your car settings. It's not complicated. It's not a 15-layer deep menu where you can adjust your left tire pressure valve or something. The menu structure is simple. Nothing going wrong here. Excellent. We like it. The borders around it are a bit dated looking, I have to say, but it doesn't bother me that much either. The only thing to criticize maybe is that it's flat on the dash, so it's not angled toward the driver or anything, making it not difficult to see or anything, but it's always nicer when it's a bit more towards me. That said, this way it is easier for the passenger to operate, so there's that. Underneath, some manual vent controls for your airflow, and underneath that a manual Klima unit. That is actually how you want it to be. This is a simple operation with 2 dials and a bunch of buttons that you can actually feel and touch. So no swipey, haptic, any nonsense going on here. Just a button that you can change temperature with, buttons that you can press to change the airspeed. That is how you want it. The reason being is that you can do this without looking at it. You can just do this based on muscle memory and touch. You know that the 4th button from the left is the fan, and you know that the knob is to turn the temperature. So you don't have to take your eyes off the road 5 times in order to find the button, confirm the press, and see the action. It's just easier this way, that you know that you've pressed it because you've done it, and you feel it in your fingertips, and that is excellent. So this is the way you want your Klima unit to be. Underneath that, we have a few rocker switches for the seat heating. So that is like a light switch, on, off, and high. And the downside of that is that when you leave it on, then if you don't put it back in the off position, then your seat heating will be on again when you get back in. So I think it's easy to just put a button there, but I think this is probably the more cheaper and robust solution, because this is what Toyota has already been doing for a while. Two USB chargers there and a wireless charging pad, and then some piano black around the shifter. PRND&B, so simple, nothing really going on there. And then we have a bunch of buttons here in the middle. First one is driving mode. I can go for sport, eco, and a normal, and I can already tell you that you'll never touch that button. I don't know why it's in there. 130 horsepower is not enough to warrant a sport setting, and neither is it so little that you need an eco setting. So I don't understand why it's there. The same thing goes for turning the traction control off. You're never going to do that. Why would you? So you're going to leave it in normal and all is well. The button you will probably press sometime is the EV mode. So depending on your state of charge of the battery, you can press that button and the car will stick to EV only. Obviously that only works on low speed because this is not an EV. But if you want to enter your neighborhood on EV only, for example, you can press that button, and if you have enough charge, then that is possible. So that's cool. Parking button, hold button, and some cup holders. One is freely accessible and the other one is underneath this armrest. So if you have a tall coffee or something, it won't fit there. And they're also not adjustable or adaptable in any way. The armrest itself can move and open. Not really sure why, because you can fit something about this thick in here. So maybe some tissues, parking ticket, maybe your phone. But that is about it. That is all there is to see here. Actually, I'm quite comfortable here. These seats are excellent, nice with a little bit of blue stitching. Very pleasant place to be. Good view out, because I know where the car ends, at the rear window basically. The rear side mirrors are not big, but the car is also not big, so I still have a good view around the car that way, and the backup camera is fine too. So, you know, easy to maneuver around, but thanks to the size of the car, you're never really gonna have any issues maneuvering around. Parking structures, underground parking, no issues whatsoever. This fits basically anywhere. I mean, it's not an iGo that we'll drive in a future video, but you know, it's not a big car. So Excellent. Obviously, we got to take this Toyota Yaris for a bit of a drive. We are currently on the highway in a little bit of a foggy weather, but this is a place where the car feels at home, I'd say, but it's not the natural habitat. Obviously, the size of the car and the weight doesn't really invite you for super long journeys. And I have to admit that the sound insulation is also not that of a long distance cruiser. I wouldn't say it's loud in here, but it is noticeable that there's quite a lot of noise coming from the outside into the cabin. It's not like I have to fully raise my voice to talk to you quite yet, but it is noticeable. This car feels much more at home in and around town, obviously due to its size, and that's also where the 130 horsepower hybrid system comes into play. I just left my house this morning and just driving out of my street, out of my neighborhood, fully electric. I had enough battery power. It's just nice, and then, you know, as soon as you get outside the zone, you press the gas pedal and the engine kicks on. It's a pleasant way to get started with your journey. 130 horsepower in this version. There's a 115 horsepower version available as well. Doesn't sound like a lot. It is not a lot, but this car only weighs 1100 kilos. So that's certainly also not a lot. Add me to it and you get 1200 kilos, and, you know, with the weight versus the horsepower ratio, it's not going to be a race car by any stretch of the imagination, but it's zippy enough. We'll do a little acceleration now. We're doing 100. If I floor it, 110, 20, 30. It all works more than fine here on the highway, but the weight and horsepower is much more usable, let's say under 100 kilometers an hour in and around town. This car is zippy enough to easily blend into traffic, cross intersections, take little gaps in traffic and so on. Here on the highway it tops out as 175, and you can see that these sprints take a bit of time, and that's really why you notice the lack of raw horsepower. That's not too bad. It doesn't really matter, I think. It's especially here in the Netherlands for the Dutch traffic, it's easily fast enough to get on the highway, do some overtaking. It's all very usable, but this is obviously not the car where you're going to be like, oh, the exit's coming up, let's overtake 6 more trucks before I get there. That's just not happening with this amount of power. So the natural habitat is much more in and around town. That's also where the size of the car comes into play much better. Any parking lot, underground parking, small streets, or anything really that you throw at this car, it is capable of handling. Granted, the Toyota Aygo is even smaller, but that is really a tiny car. This still feels like a big enough car to travel with people and things inside, where the Aygo is really not. But yeah, in town, the sport run, the school run, groceries, little trips to family just outside of town, this is where this car shines. I've used it for about a week now with my kids in the back, with their sports buddies in the back, doing groceries, seeing people, having appointments and so on. It's just such a great all-rounder. It's a car that you just happily jump into. You never have to worry about parking because it's so small. It's just pleasant all round to use. And I do think that is really one of the big strengths of this Toyota Yaris, is that it's so versatile. You can do basically anything you want with this car, maybe apart from going on ski holiday with it, which I'm sure people in the comments is technically speaking possible, and I'm sure you've all done it several times, but that's not why you buy this car. This is just a great versatile all-rounder where you do anything from the school run to your groceries to traveling to visiting people. It's just so nice to be able to do that all with one car. And that makes this car easily adjustable as well to any kind of sort of family situation. It doesn't really matter if this is your only car or your second car or your first car or your kid's car. It's so versatile, and I think that is a real strength of Toyota, that they built this car in this iteration, in this form factor, that is so versatile for so many people in so many different situations. Only complaints I would have in here are the piano black. Maybe that the screen software is a little bit dated. You know, it's not the last word in design. Those borders around it are not really necessary either anymore. But overall, it is just, it's nice. There's no learning curve getting in here, thanks to everything being easily to operate, manual. It's just pleasant to do. And then when you drive it around, it also rewards you to drive it. I mean, it's not a race car, what I mentioned earlier, and it's certainly not the GR Yaris rally car that we drove earlier, but it's a happy little car that rewards you to go around corners, that is happy to take you places, and it makes you enjoy the journey just that little bit more. And I fully accept that nobody's going to get in this car every single day going like, yes, I'm going to drive to the office, let's show it some corners. That's not what I'm saying. And it's by no means a driver's car per se, as far as that goes. But it's a rewarding car to drive that always puts a little bit of a twinkle in your eye and a smile on your face. You're like, ah, it's pleasant to steer around corners. It wants to go around corners nicely. And it just makes the journey that much more enjoyable. And it also means that for me as a car reviewer, I mean, people often ask me which car should I buy, and depending on your situation, that varies obviously, but this is a car that you can wholeheartedly recommend to basically anybody, from your sister to your kids to your mother to your uncle. Anybody really has a spot for a Yaris in their life, which is cool. I quite like that, and I think Toyota makes it a very accessible car that way for basically any use case. All round, I like this Yaris. I think it's a cool car. It looks good in this iteration. The tech is great here with the head-up display, the nice seat, good sound system, an all-round great performer. I think it is an excellent car choice for basically anyone. So that's all I got for you in this video. Give it a thumbs up if you like it. Let me know in the comments which Yaris you would prefer. This normal one, the Yaris Cross, the slightly higher one, or maybe even the GR Yaris rally car if you had the money. Let me know. Interesting to read. For now, thank you very much for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Cheers!